everybody, welcome to Blacktop Banter. Obviously, we're in the new Wisco Blacktop Banter office. I know it's been a minute since everybody had seen us here and took a hiatus, but we're back. And I actually recorded a couple episodes that got lost during the movement back and forth. One of them was with this guy, Adam Gholston. So he's got an interesting, I don't know if it's no interesting, but we don't talk to people that specifically only do sport services all that often. So I really wanted to get that last podcast out and didn't get a chance to when we moved. The computer's updated and we lost it. So thankfully, Adam agreed to come back and deal with me for about another hour one more time, and we'll get to it. So as I said, this is Blacktop Banter episode 49, and my guest is Adam Gholston of AG Sport Services. Adam, introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are again.
I'm Adam Gholston. I own AG Sport Services, and we deal with tennis courts and running tracks.
Yeah, and what else, dude? Pickleball courts, pretty much.
Court, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much anything, right?
If it has a ball on it, we'll paint it.
Yeah. So where are you guys located at?
Lebanon, Indiana.
And that's a suburb of what?
It's just kind of north of Indianapolis.
I've been there before, and you're right. It's
You'll pass the shop going down 65.
Yeah. It's not an easy place to find. I'll be honest with you. I kind of thought maybe I was getting lured in and catfished in. I was like, well,
we moved since then.
Oh, you have? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, good. Now it gives me another reason to come back and visit again, I guess. All right. So how did you get into sport surfaces? I know you've told me this quite a bit, but we better elaborate for everybody that's listening.
So we originally started out like everyone else, seal coating, line striping. I was always looking for a niche. Like we bought thermoplastic machines. I about got hit on the road one day, so I was like, screw that. We sold all that. So I was always trying to find a niche because it's hard to get your profit margins, and guys are going around adding a bunch of water, and it's hard to compete. Right. So we had people ask if we could do it, and we kept turning them down. And I got tired of turning them down, but I was also scared to do it. Right. I was like, I don't want to mess it up. So after a while, then I just kept asking, and then I found some guy that would teach me how to do it in Florida. So one winter we went down to Florida, and he kind of showed us how to do it. And so we kind of had a hybrid system going for about 2 years where we were still seal coating, line striping, and then doing tennis courts. And then it just kind of took off, and we were able to kind of push the seal coat off to another guy. He wanted to get into it. He bought the equipment, and we just never looked back.
So when I was down there, you talked about, you showed me your machines, right? And they're different than what you would be used to if you only seal coated in a little bit. And I noticed the one thing when you open the lid, there's definitely a different smell. So tell us about the machines, and then tell us about the material.
The machines are pretty much the same. They still have the 1.5 inch. Like our one tank is literally a seal coat tank that we just put different material in, and the other one's just 2 smaller tanks. But I mean, they agitate. They have pumps on them. We just don't spray with them like you normally would.
Right.
The material is a acrylic-based material versus a coal tar or asphalt based, so like they don't mix. And we run into that a lot of times. Seal coat will go in and he'll put seal coat over a tennis court, and then he ruins the whole tennis court. It's like rip it out and start over.
Yeah. So what I noticed when we opened it, and you were showing me it looked like there was a lot of grit, right? There's a lot of aggregate in there. Is that right?
Yeah, we use a couple different types of silica sand depending on the application we're doing, but it's just like sealer. You add your water, your silica sand, and then your pure.
And that's it.
That's it.
So one thing you and I talked, because you keep saying, dude, do a court, do a court, and keep pressuring. And last year I was like, I might be able to get into one, and you're like, I'm like, but I got to pave it and do whatever. And you're like, oh, you can handle that. I didn't do it, just so you know. I was like, no, dude.
I know you did it.
I'm like, I don't want any part of this from the ground up. They are getting it done. We may donate to getting it done for them and things too. they are getting it done. Somebody come in and did it full from, and it's a decent company from full scale from top to bottom. But you were telling me that you can, sometimes you can actually change, you like adjust the elevation in some spots and puddles and different things with the material. Was that right?
Yeah, so we have filler coats. It's just a Portland cement, silica sand, and then a latex binder. And
Okay.
it comes out to like a milkshake consistency. You squeegee it on, or we use like a 2x4. And then you can sand it smooth.
Oh,
It's
really?
pretty nice. Yeah, so it's easy to blend in. That's why don't usually see patches on tennis courts.
Okay. Okay. So what if, so let's say you're doing like let's say you're resurfacing an older one. Dude, I've seen some tennis courts that have like gaping cracks, man. Like, I don't know why, like those square pads get huge cracks in them, but then people will fill them with crap, especially rubber or something like that, which is a huge mistake, I would imagine, on for
That's
you.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you do? First of all, what do you do if there's nothing in there? And then what do you do if there's rubber in there already or something?
So if there's nothing in there, we just clean them out, and then depending on how wide they are, like we've done courts where the city didn't have a budget, but they wanted to fix them, so we cleaned them out. One court, we brought a concrete truck in and just started filling the cracks with concrete.
Okay. All right.
um, but if you put rubber in it, then we have to literally dig the rubber out of the cracks.
Man, and then put concrete back in there.
Yep, because
Yeah.
you're always wanting the ball to play true. And
Yeah.
when they say true, that's the bounce. So the ball has to bounce on something solid where the rubber gives, and
Yeah.
that the ball just doesn't bounce and it gets sticky, and then our material will not stick to it. It'll literally flake off.
I got you. So if it's a pavement surface, so let's say pavement in the sense of an asphalt surface, you can put concrete in there in the cracks and stuff, and then put your guys' sports surface material over it, and everything's copacetic.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you notice that it cracks more or sooner depending on if it's concrete cracks or if it's even what if they're small cracks, Adam? Like what if they're a half quarter of an inch, half inch?
So we have routers. We can open the crack up to get material down in them.
Okay. You use cement for that then too after you router it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So we can open them up. You really, it's not hard to fill cracks, and we
Right.
get to blend in.
I'm making it more complicated than it is.
But so we try to saw cut the courts so they
Yeah.
crack in certain areas. Like we want them to crack between the courts, and we want them to crack underneath the net line.
Yeah.
So that way it's not cracking in the playing areas. That kind of mitigates the cracking a little bit, but it all bases to how well it was put in. If they put a base in that's hard, it's
Yep.
probably not going anywhere. But if they do a crappy job, it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Like
Something's
we just paint it.
right. Right. So so let's talk about some of those projects. Like you showed me some before pictures, and you're like, yeah, we did this, and it's like tennis court on top of tennis court. What are some of the larger projects and more complicated ones you've had to do?
Um, Complicated wise, it would be stencils. We did a basketball court for the NBA All-Star game that was supposed to happen in Indianapolis, and it has logos all over it. Like my guys were ready to quit. They were on their hands and knees putting logos down for 3 weeks.
Damn, really? Dude.
And honestly, the banks, once you get a good system down, they're almost easier to do than a single or a double because you just keep going. There's no time. Material, it's like seal coat. If you get in the shade, it's not drying.
Right.
So you can almost do 4 courts in the same time you can do 1.
Sure. What's a bank? What does bank mean?
Oh, when I say a bank, that means more than 1 tennis court. So a bank of
Oh,
10 tennis courts.
I got you. I got you. So you got 10 in
Or
a row at a
yeah,
college or something like that.
a lot of the high schools around here have to have at least 6 to hold
Oh,
matches. So
okay.
you could have a bank of 2 4s or
12.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
However it gets there.
2 6s, whatever. But we prefer the bigger projects because there's no
Bet.
time. There's no time. You're not wasting any time.
Yeah. What's the farthest you've ever went for one?
Davenport, Iowa, and then Siesta Key, Florida.
Dang, really, really. But then Davenport, Iowa would be the second
Yeah,
one. Yeah,
yeah.
so pretty soon it'll be Wisconsin somewhere, because I'm sure I'm not gonna turn them down if you'll do them. So we'll get them up here with Wisco to do one at some point, hopefully. So what, let's say you weren't going to transition like you did, right? From seal coating to um line striping and those kinds of things. What would be the best way? What would be the advice for people who want to get into it in general?
Um, I mean, a lot of it's mindset too. Like, if you're very detail oriented, it's not a hard transition. Now, if you're a seal coater and it's just, hey, turn it black and let's go somewhere else, this
Yeah,
isn't probably the area you want to. It's going to cost you a lot of money to fix it.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but if you're brooming driveways and you're really particular about the ends and them being straight, and it's not that hard of a transition. Instead of using a brush, you're using a squeegee, and it's kind of the same. It's that helps a lot. That kind of changes your
Helps you
learning.
transition.
Yeah,
What if you what, like, let's say you're working at a grocery store, dude, you're the grocery store general manager, and then you see somebody doing sport courts, and you're like, I want to get into that. Then what? What if you have no experience seal coating, you're doing whatever?
I
Well,
would do what I did. I found someone that wasn't remotely close to a competition to me, or I wouldn't be a competition to them, and just said, "Hey, can I work for free for a little while? You show me what to do," and that worked out great for us. That kind of helped a bunch.
how long did you think, how long do you think from when you first started doing it did it take where you're like, all right, we're good at this?
Uh, at first, after we did a couple, we were pretty good, and then after winter, when we got to that second spring, we're like, "Shit, are we doing this right?" Like, and that night before, I didn't sleep. Like, I'm like, I hope we didn't forget everything that last summer. And then after the third spring, we were pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. So that third spring, is that when you guys got rid of everything, or was that the second year you got rid of the third one?
That third one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is how long, like, because in this industry you hate to turn down work anyways. So then to completely, cut pieces off and say, well, we're just going to do this. You're not the first person I know that's went to like hyper located on one aspect of asphalt maintenance, or a certain branch, and have had great success at it. And a lot of times I find that people who try not to juggle every aspect of asphalt maintenance in general actually do a lot better when they hyperlocate on just one thing. I think that's why the striping industry is so big, because they stick to what they do. They do large numbers of work, right? And they do very detail oriented work, like you were saying. And there's a large number of them. I've also seen guys that only do crack sealing, and they're like, that's their service. We only do crack sealing. They do municipalities and go all over the state. So I think I definitely think that tangent, going and hyperlocating on one thing, if you're capable of it, is good. Where we're at, like, we're so rural in Wisconsin, I can't. I got to juggle everything at once, at least for now, anyways. So
My biggest hurdle with it was the time you spend transitioning to go do something else. Um, just because I grew up doing excavating, concrete, so like there for a while I'd tackle anything. Well, you spend 2 hours loading the trailer to go do a small concrete job, come back to the shop, unload it, then load all your paint machines back in. I was like, man, we're spending a ton of time just moving tools around for no
yeah,
reason.
yeah, yeah. Well, then I mean, you guys already had the business side set up anyways, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
not just doing the work itself, but the business set up anyway. So you knew what you were doing that way. Is the efficiency, that you had to get under control. When did, so I know you didn't just start with the big tanks, right? You said 55-gallon drums or something you guys started out
Yeah.
with. Is that right?
Yep.
So tell me about that setup, and then we'll get into how people can find you and find your work, and things like that. When did it go? How was it, first of all, with the 55-gallon drums to begin with? And then that transition into the equipment and stuff you guys got now?
Well, it's like anything. If you don't know any better, it doesn't matter. Like that's just the way you do things. So now, if I had to go back to doing 55-gallon drums, yeah, I'd probably be a little pissed. But when you're first starting out, you don't care. You're just trying to make it.
Right.
So if you got to mix it in Dixie cups, you're going to mix it in Dixie cups. You don't care.
I got you.
So we started out mixing it because it all comes in barrels.
Yeah.
So it's already in barrels. We would just throw in the back of a truck. We'd have some mixers and just mix it, hand mix it.
Like mix it on drills with drills?
On drills, yep. We just get a big heavy duty mud mixer. Don't get a small Home Depot drill.
Right.
You'll burn the motor out of it because there is so much sand.
You need
like
a big one with a handle on the side.
Yeah.
I got you.
So you can get into it pretty simple and low cost. When Mr. Hamilton was getting into it, I was like, you literally just need a drill, a paddle, some squeegees, and like a wheelbarrow, and you already have blowers, you already have crack chasers.
Right.
So it doesn't take a lot to get going if you're only going to do a few. But when we switched from seal coating, we had a 750-gallon tank.
Okay.
I was like, at that point, I was like, well, let's use that to mix resurfing since we're not going to put seal coat. And then a year later, then we bought the mixing tanks to go along.
I gotcha. So what? How does that? What do you mean? You mean the two mixing tanks, right?
Yeah.
You have two set up. So what? How do those work? Like I know you have the big one. The mixing tanks, you mix the material and then you pump that into the big one, or how do you?
No. So when after you fill the cracks, there's a material called resurfacer. It's a black material. I call it like a primer coat or a filler coat.
Okay.
Like when your asphalt's porous, you want to fill those voids.
Right.
And it's a lot cheaper. So you want a smooth coat. So you put resurfacer down first, and that's our big one because you use a ton of it.
Yeah.
And then we have the collar tanks with the actual colors mixed in, and we have two separate tanks. So normally we have blue and green. Kind of my motto is like Henry Ford. You can have any color tennis court you want as long as it's blue and green.
I got you. That works out. Yeah.
So
I am striping paint, man, because
I
hate switching paint colors.
I did too. So like if you want a different color, we'll do it, but it's an extra.
Oh yeah. So with those two setups, I was going to ask you another question. With those two setups, I'm always curious about how you apply the resurfacer. I'm guessing it's a little bit thicker, as you said, you can build up with it and whatnot. How do you get those, if you're using a squeegee or a broom, how do you get the ridges out? Like there's got to be little ridges, right? I mean, you can't. No, you squeegee it like a window. It's perfect, right?
Yeah, like if you're leaving ridges, you're doing something wrong. So it doesn't lay down. Like with sealer, sometimes it tends to flow and lay down and you don't see it. This stuff, if you leave a ridge, it's going to be a ridge.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring with it being acrylic.
So you really have to pay attention and make sure as you're coming back through the passes that you're knocking everything down.
I got you. Otherwise, you sand it down if you do.
You can, you can fix it. It's the final coat that you cannot fix.
I got you. So even
the other two coats you can fix. You can scrape them or you can sand them. But yeah, you can fix everything besides that final coat.
Damn. All right. That's what I was curious about because I thought, man, I know me. I'm going to lose some, right? And then I was like, well, if you can't sand it down, how do you do it? You're screwed. You're going to do it again. So cool. So I know you show your work, right? So we see that. Where can people find you online? I know your Instagram's usually full of them. So what's the Instagram?
It's just AG Sport Surfaces.
Okay. And then where else can they find you online?
Just Facebook, but we mainly just do Instagram.
Yeah, I like seeing it. I mean, yeah. And then I know you mentioned Braden Hamilton, so you're probably going to get a few more inquiries on, hey, how do we do this? How do we get into it? I know that you and I have had the conversation about how much more lucrative it is versus seal coating, obviously because it's a specialty. It's it's going to take a lot more work than just making it black, like you said. So, all right, sir. Anything else? Any more advice? Any more parting words before we go?
I mean, just know your numbers. It doesn't matter if you're seal coating or if you're baking cakes or whatever you're doing. Know your numbers.
How do we know our numbers? How do we find out our numbers? How do we do it in a nutshell?
A lot of it just tracking them, like simple things like my guys clock in on an app and they pick the job, so we know how many hours are going to that job. And then we just built spreadsheets, like we know how much material, we know what it costs per hour, then we know our markup, our overhead, how much we need per mile per truck to get to the job. And then we just build a spreadsheet in Excel. We type in how many square foot it is, how far from the job it is, how many guys we plan on having it, and then how many days we plan on being there. And then it shoots out a price due to what we want as our gross profit margin and all that.
Yeah. Somebody should take a class on that, is what you're trying to tell me. Get somebody who knows what they're talking about and have them mentor you in that aspect, or take a class on job costing. Essentially. Okay, cool. All right. Now we got one back finally. We got our episode back. We're good to go. That's my timer, so we're done just in time.
Okay,
Keep
perfect.
going.
I was gonna plug Love in there, but I didn't know if you wanted me plugging people in.
Gonna be plugging who?
What's that guy? Love Asphalt?
Chris Love. Oh yeah, Chris Love.
Yeah.
That guy's an asshole.
Is he?
No,
Yeah.
he's not an asshole. He's a good friend. He's a good friend of mine. We had a really great time in Charlotte at MPE this last run. So he's a good dude. Very good dude. And
that numbers thing, I think, is pretty good.
I do too. The dude knows his numbers and stresses how important it is. He's really, really, really good at it. I'm super impressed every time I see him. He doesn't want to have to pay for paper clips, dude, if you don't have to. So
it's huge. The devil's in the details, and
it adds up. It does.
The thing that I like about it is it's been great for us, but like if times get tough, you don't want to go out there and the first couple of years we were in business, we just sling numbers out there going, fuck, we're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
You get to fucking November and you're like, fuck, where's all my money?
Where's all the money that we were making? Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And you're like, shit. Like now we know, like, hey, if we go a day over, that's going to cost us $1,200. Like,
yeah. And I mean that for me, I wasn't right. So when I was struggling right before we did well, dude, I just figured if I'm making X and it cost me X in material, I'm good. Yeah. Dude, it's not.
No.
Because there's days where you're not making X and it's still costing you X, right? And you're going to run out of some things and that's going to cost as well. So once I started to get a grasp on that, that's probably the best advice is figure out your job costing. Then you know whether it's worth it or not that you're doing this project, because there's probably somebody bidding it that's not taking that into account, and they're going to win the low bid and probably maybe lose money, maybe break even, maybe not make much at all, and their time could have been better spent somewhere else. So that's some of the best advice.
I wish someone would have told me that when I first started.
Yeah.
Figure your numbers out. And that was huge for us.
Yeah. The best way to do it is to find somebody in the industry that is successful and ask them how to do it. And I mean, you can take classes, but not everything translates to our industry perfectly. But there's definitely people who have succeeded and know what they're doing in our industry. And you can't get any better than that, I don't think, if you have somebody telling you firsthand. So cool. All right. We how do you call that? We avenged our missing episode. All right. So for myself, for Adam Gholston at AG Sports Services, this is Blacktop Banter, episode 49. We're back on the ball. We want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, and kill it. Peace.